whatever you wind up doing is exactly what you should be doing.
And I have not behaved one single day of my life. Not one day of my life have I behaved, and I am fine.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're going to hurt some people.
Whose car are we going to take?
Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the Nikki Medoro Show live on YouTube. Myself, along with Kim McAllister. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
I love the people that go into the comments before the show, Kim, because I learn new things. Apparently today, according to Kay in Santa Rosa, it's Sneak Some Zucchini into Your Neighbor's Porch Day.
Oh.
So I Googled it real quickly. According to the Farmer's Almanac, every gardener who has grown zucchini knows that this time of year vines go crazy. They grow to a gargantuan size if not picked. And that is why people, sneak it onto the porch because they have too much zucchini and don't know what to do with it. I actually just had, I didn't have zucchini. I mean, squash and zucchini. I'm not a gardener. Are they interchangeable? Gardeners, let me know, because I had a green squash and and I call it zucchini, and I breaded it with Italian panko yesterday.
Oh,
and I put it in my air fryer. Bomb. It was so freaking good.
I think squash can be used for a lot of kind of in that whole family.
Yeah.
Usually when I think squash, I think yellow, but I think a zucchini is maybe a kind of squash. I don't know.
Yeah. Anybody in any expert farmers that can
I'll take some on my porch. Sweet. There
you go. A good, nice zucchini on your porch, waking up, have some air fried. I love fried zucchini. I think it's so freaking good. So good morning, all. We have a great show coming up. As I teased, OAK could be going away. They're taking a survey, apparently, to change possibly. They're just kind of asking if we need to change the name of Oakland International Airport to something like San Francisco East Bay Area International Airport. So we'll get into that. I mean, my first thought, Kim, was, geez, all the sports teams are leaving and now you're going to take the airport name too. Is Oakland just a name you don't want attached to anything? We'll also talk about the Oakland A's. Did you see that there's this Tahoe coffee shop, which has put up a note, and I'll show it to you guys in a little bit when we do the story, where Oakland A's owner John Fisher is persona non grata. You are not allowed. If anyone is part of the Oakland A's franchise and as an owner, you're out. John Fisher is banned. And the A's are also investigating why some of their fans wearing those Sell the Team t-shirts were escorted from the game. I think the John Fisher ban and that kind of go hand in hand. We'll touch a bit on Ron DeSantis finally admitting what everybody that is in their right mind knows, which is, of course, former President Trump lost the 2020 election.
Do you find time to admit that then?
Exactly. Right. But I think his campaign's not doing so well. I don't know if this helps or hurts. I mean, I really feel like the MAGA people, they're obviously not going to support Ron DeSantis if they're a huge Trumper, right? But if, let's say Trump drops out, my question is, will they go to Ron DeSantis, who has now said this about their cult leader, right? You sent me this story yesterday regarding educators using TikTok to, kind of fill in the gaps in education, reaching children where they are on platforms they like to be on, which, I think it's a double-edged sword with stuff like that. Who's moderating this? Is it getting approved? Do you know what your kids are watching type of thing? And then I wake up this morning and I see Governor Newsom's tweet where he's all pissed off that Florida is apparently going to allow teachers to use PragerU or Prager University curriculum in classrooms. If you don't know what Prager University is, it's like a propaganda education arm of the far right. I mean, that's how
a disappointment.
Yeah. And I'll play you a little bit of a news clip. I mean, they have everything from Christopher Columbus defending slavery. And my question when we talk about this is, why are some groups, some conservative groups, trying so hard to defend slavery? It's like this pushback on what they think CRT is, right? And so we'll get into that and how should kids be educated and, really the whole parental decision surrounding all of that. We have a bunch of other stuff. Zoom, which made so much money during COVID because everybody was Zooming into the office, is not going to allow its employees to Zoom into the office anymore, which I don't know how I really feel about that. I mean, it's like you're hurting your own bottom line. We'll talk about all that and so much more. But first, before we get into it, are you okay?
Oh, yeah, I have to. I know you're gonna want news, but I haven't logged into my news computer.
Oh, go ahead. I have to do business.
I think, oh no, here it comes, and I'm not ready.
It's a little early for Kim McAllister, you guys. It's a little bit early. So while she's doing that, click the thumbs up button to show your support of the show. There's the beautiful girl. Throw the thumbs up button. Click it once, just once. It doesn't need a million hits, just once. Make sure it's on. YouTube loves it. We love it. The super chat is also live, and as he likes to do, and I'm loving this habit of you, Harry. Harry is starting off our super chat with a $5 super sticker. Harry, honestly, and if you guys don't think that it matters, every dollar matters to keep this show on the air. I mean, it's a slow and steady increase, and we need it so very much. So, Harry, thank you. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that we really do appreciate and need the support, the financial support of people on the show. And of course, a big thank you to all of our current and hopefully future Medorables who have signed up to be monthly Patreon subscribers. I try not to do this too much during the show, but this is the only way that we make money. We're a 100% crowd-funded show, and we depend on our monthly Patreon subscribers so very much because it's consistent money that we can kind of depend on every single month. And so it's a one-time a month membership. You decide how much you can afford. If it's $10, great. If it's more than that, fabulous. So just go to theNikkiMedoroShow.com. Please click on the Patreon and subscribe to our show and become a monthly subscriber because we do appreciate it. Now, if you go to theNikkiMedoroShow.com, you'll see our links to all of the other things. Our podcast, it's on Spreaker. It's on all the podcast apps, Spotify. You can take us in your ears. Put us in your ear holes and laugh along with us during the show. But also our PayPal link is there. The email for PayPal and the email to reach me is the same. It's theNikkiMedoroShow@gmail.com. And then, of course, we have our merchandise shop. Some of it's behind us. There's a lot more on the website. So just go to theNikkiMedoroShop.com. And again, I'm going to be working on a raffle box. Some of my favorite things I'm putting together. And we're going to do a raffle
box.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's a what is Nikki into? And I'm going to give a raffle and the money is going to help support the show. And so I'm still trying to figure out the logistics. I want to give some of my Medorables maybe like a free entry, and then you could buy extra entries into the raffle, and we'll have that going on all month. And so details are coming once I put together box of Nikki's favorite things. So cue the music. Yeah.
I'm ready.
You're all set and ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Okay. Oh, I can't wait to get into OAK. Sandy made a good point. San Jose is another city that hates to use its name. They changed the San Jose Mercury News to the Silicon Valley Mercury News. I thought it just went by Mercury News, in all honesty. And NBC Bay Area is another one. Ooh, interesting. Okay, so what do you think it is? We're going to talk about OAK, Oakland International Airport, considering toying with the idea of changing its name, kind of dropping Oakland. Do you think a city besides San Francisco, which, by the way, doesn't have too many good headlines with it either, is the right way to go? We'll talk about that right after Kim's news.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Good morning. It is Kim McAllister on the Nikki Medoro Show on this morning. Thousands of people are without power after severe storms battered the eastern U.S. yesterday. At least 2 people were killed, 300,000 now without power. Tornado watches and warnings stretched across 10 states from Tennessee to New York. Former President Trump's lawyers trying to stop a protective order from being issued in the election interference case. The Department of Justice filed for the order, asking the judge to place some limits on Trump's speech about the case after the former president posted, "If you go after me, I'm coming after you." Wow.
Okay, what's the over under on the fact on how quickly it is going to be for him to break this rule if it happens.
Oh, if his speech is limited,
Yeah.
toast. He's in
Like 2
contempt of
seconds.
court within minutes. Yeah. Trump's legal team claims such a move would violate the First Amendment, adding the politicians are already using this case to raise money. So.
But I mean, judges have issued gag orders. You can't say certain things before. It's as if Trump and his lawyers want him to live in a world that we all do not live in. Why should he, who wants to be president of the United States again, supposed to follow the laws, the rules, the regulations of our country, want special treatment? You would think that he would want to follow the law and order he continues to talk about ad nauseum. He's full of it. He'll break it. Absolutely.
I would also argue that those words, if you go after me, I'm coming after you, are rather threatening in nature.
Yeah,
right?
but he can talk himself around it.
Stir up the pot of
Yes.
deplorables to come after the special prosecutor to issue threats. I'm sure threats have already been issued, but it's just it's not
it's not appropriate.
It's not appropriate. It's
Especially
not good.
After January 6th and what his words led
Yeah.
to. Let's rein it in. You're actually going to court over January 6th and you're kind of mimicking the same type of verbal behavior.
I mean, if that's not understanding the whole thing that happened, I don't know what is. I mean, I guess it could support your thought process that you've done nothing wrong and you really don't understand, like you have no concept of the issue here,
idiot.
right?
Then he's
I
an
mean,
idiot. Yeah. I'm not
I
buying
just I don't know. It just shows a huge lack of awareness of anything. Let's talk about Nikki Haley. Republican presidential hopeful Nikki Haley speaking out against Senator Tommy Tuberville for blocking hundreds of military promotions. During a radio interview Tuesday, Haley accused the Alabama senator of using the promotions as fodder in his battle with the Pentagon over its abortion policy. Haley said that while she disagrees with the policy, she said there's got to be another way to handle it. So she's not happy about that. Scientists are officially labeling July as the hottest month in world recorded history.
Wow.
Copernicus Climate Change Service, which is a division of the European Union space program, announced that July's global average temperature was just over 62.5 degrees Fahrenheit, and that broke the previous record set in July of 2019. So this July, hottest one the world has ever seen.
Did you see that picture? I think it was of some park rangers standing in front of the temperature sign. I think it was in Death Valley or something. And somebody posted that this is like dinosaurs taking a picture with the asteroids, like or the meteors, like whatever. Like it was so funny. It's like, yeah, we're boiling to death. We are the frog in the pot. Let's take a picture with the spoon, you know?
Yeah, smile, everybody. Look at the temperature there. Yeah.
No.
I know we have to. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis making changes to his presidential campaign team. Shaking things up.
I saw that.
Trouble in paradise. DeSantis bringing in his longtime chief of staff, James Uthmeyer, to serve as his new presidential campaign manager, replacing Janera Peck, who will stay on as a senior advisor. The reset comes weeks after the campaign laid off staffers to cut costs, and as DeSantis trails former President Trump in the polls. Also yesterday, we were talking about that DeSantis set up this meet and greet at a campaign stop in, I want to say, Iowa, and maybe like a handful of people showed up in this giant auction house, like where you auction off cattle and livestock, and it was like almost the whole place was empty.
I mean, you definitely, if I was a candidate, it reminds me of maybe like a book signing. Don't let your ego outweigh, necessarily how many people support you or are fans of you. Choose a very small venue. So if a lot of people show up, it looks like a madhouse. And if not a lot of people show up, you don't have to worry about filling it up. But, I think Ron DeSantis, when he steps outside of Florida, he realizes the country is quite big and there's a lot of MAGA people out there and they're not necessarily all in on DeSantis.
Yeah, well, it may speak about, maybe that's why we're seeing changes, but it may be time to throw in the towel, maybe. If getting enough support.
Yeah, John asked the hard-hitting question, though, Kim. Who would play DeSantis on SNL?
Oh.
Who would play DeSantis? Okay, I need ideas. Who would play DeSantis? I mean, if of any actor throughout time, I could see like a Bill Murray, a younger Bill Murray doing him, perhaps.
John Hamm, maybe.
Oh, that would be funny. Yeah, John Hamm. John Hamm has that, dry sense of humor. A total side note, just because you said the name John Hamm. Do I have any Good Omens fans in the audience? Because I just binge watched the second season. So freaking good and ended on a cliffhanger. I would die. Oh my God. Walnut Creek Adult Softball, Mike Myers.
Oh,
that would
yeah,
be a
that's
good one.
perfect. Yeah.
Charlie Sheen would be like a badass crazy Ron DeSantis, but I could see that as well. Yeah. That'll be interesting.
Whoever said Mike Myers, that's perfect. Absolutely.
Mike Myers is pretty perfect.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, let's move on. Got his picture down. That's good stuff. This is San Jose, where thousands of San Jose city workers are walking off the job next week. 2 unions representing about 4,500 workers authorized a strike on Monday to fight for what they call a livable wage. The 3-day unfair labor practices strike starts August 15th. Workers say they need better wages and they need benefit options too. The city recently offered the workers a 5% raise next year, followed by 4% and 3% raises in the following years. Not good enough. Got to go.
Yeah. Our mayor is saying, basically, if it's anything above 5, they're going to have to cut something. And he wants to know what do you want to cut? Yes. But I always say from the top, that's where you cut. You don't cut from the bottom. You cut from the top where all the money is. The highest paid employees should be paid less. I know you want to retain good employees and what have you, but I don't know. It's so complicated. I understand it's an expensive place to live. We can't jump immediately. Pardon me. But I also don't want to see, there's a lot of workers that are going to be involved in this 3-day strike. So it's going to really hurt for those 3 days. I'm telling you.
Let's talk about sideshows. Officials in Santa Rosa are trying a new tactic to stop sideshows. The city attorney is taking 13 sideshow promoters to court, suing them for pollution violations. Look at all that smoke and nastiness they're kicking up in the air, right?
Yeah.
Police say that not only do the sideshows mess up the streets, but rubber debris from tires can go into local waterways and pollute them. Santa Rosa suing each sideshow promoter for $25,000. That ought to do it. It's believed to be the first time a California city has tried to take sideshow promoters to court over their actions. Santa Rosa police say they will also continue to impound vehicles used in sideshows as well. $25,000. Would that stop you from doing this kind of stuff?
They have to see it happen to enough people, I think, before it will make any sort of difference. I mean, impounding cars, they've been doing it, right? Which has to be expensive to get your car out. Nah. I don't know what it's going to take. I really, really don't. But, money can't hurt. It can only help.
Lastly, the experience of a Florida couple may have you rethinking the next time you go to the potty. Hollywood's Crystal Collins and her husband found an iguana in their toilet last week. Her husband, the first to see it, and she sarcastically says his scream was very manly. They were shocked but still retained their sense of humor. She suggested burning down the house to get rid of it because, in her words, neither of them do lizards. But they decided to call a friend instead. That friend used a garbage bag to pull the iguana out of the toilet. That is when they all realized it was still alive in there. Yeah. Collins tells CBS News Miami if this happens again, they might actually have to move.
It's traumatic. I can't imagine opening up the toilet, seeing something in there, and then going to the bathroom the same way ever again. I think I'd be traumatized. Absolutely.
I mean, it's an iguana. It's not like a snake. And iguanas do bite, but it's just a lizard. I mean, don't worry about
anything
it.
in my toilet that is alive, I will always be traumatized by.
Yeah,
I don't care if it's
agreed.
a worm, a rat,
agree.
an iguana. I don't care. No. And again, I always bring up, my favorite 80s movie, Porky's, where they stuck the snake up the toilet for the gym teacher. That's what it always reminds me of. And so I will never, ever, ever go to the bathroom the same way again. It's just not happening.
Yeah. So if you take a little trip to Florida, check in there first. Make sure before you sit down. No.
I love it. I love it.
So, and also, do you ever watch that show Hard Knocks?
No, I have heard of it though. I have not watched it.
Yeah, well, it starts tonight. It's on HBO. It is a training camp docuseries, and I guess they focus on a new team every season. And this year it is the New York Jets. And so the Hard Knocks on HBO starts at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, my brother will love it. My brother is a Jets fan for some godforsaken reason because that team sucks. But
yeah,
we'll see.
I kind of like having that guy up there. He's kind of cute.
He's cute in the picture. He's not cute in my toilet.
Not cute in your toilet. No.
No, thank you.
This show is crowdfunded, which means we do rely on you to fund the show. Find us at theNikkiMedoroShow.com, theNikkiMedoroShow.com. Patreon link is there. PayPal link is there. Other cool stuff too. So even if you're not moved to contribute or you can't for whatever reason, no worries. Go check out the podcast, the merchandise site, other things, and just see what we have going on the NikkiMedoroShow.com. I'm Kim McAllister on, you got it, the Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you, Kim. All right, so Oakland. So Oakland's call letters, and somebody was saying KOAK for the FAA, but if you fly into Oakland, you're flying into OAK. But apparently, people do not know their way to OAK. And they're considering changing the name of the airport. Now, the call letters or, the flight, the airport code would still be OAK. So it would still be those letters, but they want to change what the name would be. And one of the options that I guess they surveyed people about was the San Francisco East Bay Area International Airport. The Port of Oakland is the one that began circulating the survey. It wouldn't change the name of the port, just the airport. And some people are very upset about it. One person said, hell no. The reason was given that out-of-town travelers supposedly don't know where Oakland is. Here's my question. One, what do you think about this? Do you think it really, truly matters? And two, I don't necessarily know where all airports are. I just know when I want to go to a place, I look up the nearby airports. Does that make sense? So I don't need to know exactly. Like when I went to Maui, I didn't know exactly on the island where it was, but you know what I had? Google and Google Maps. I don't feel like we live in a time in which people can't figure it out themselves. And so I feel like there's something else going on here. I feel like they want to, again, remove Oakland because of the bad rap the city gets with all these other headlines so that more people will fly into the airport. But let me also say this. If I was a person who wanted to avoid Oakland, how pissed would I be if I fly into Oakland and I'm like, wait, this airport is where? I mean, one part of you would be a moron for not Googling it, of course. But it does seem like Oakland can't catch a break.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little unfair. And I know, I get it that, branding and those sorts of things matter. But do we need to go this far? Is this something that you think people need to be aware of? Now, Eric had said earlier, why are people afraid of Oakland? It's a huge city because bad headlines spread like wildfire. And so that's why. Now, Perry Joe says Oakland is the Detroit of the West Coast. That's not nice. I don't think that Oakland is the Detroit of the West Coast. But I can see why you would make that assumption. I mean, you kind of have a point because of the businesses that are leaving, but it's mainly, sports teams. So I guess if you want to do car companies, obviously motor companies versus sports teams, I can make that analogy. But I don't know.
So I feel like I was reading this article and it said people don't know where Oakland is.
I feel like that's BS, but whatever.
What do you mean you don't know where Oakland is? Anyone who lives in the Bay Area knows where Oakland is. It's a major city. We've got, there's kind of I would say one of the largest city in each of our Bay Area regions, right? You've got San Francisco, the major Bay Area city. You've got San Jose, the major city in the South Bay. You've got Oakland, the major city in the East Bay. In the North Bay, I might say, depending on which county you're looking at, San Rafael, Santa Rosa, whatever, Napa, these
Yeah.
are the kind of the bigger cities, the more well-known cities. How do you not know where Oakland is? It's ridiculous.
Well, I think they're talking about out-of-towners. I think they're talking about people that
Mm.
I would say don't live in California at all. I think if you ask a Californian, even Southern Californian, where Oakland is, they'll know it's in the Bay Area. We have I mean, even though the A's are leaving, it's not as if they're left yet. People know the Oakland A's. They've heard the word. I do think, though, I think it's more, I don't think it's a geography question. I think it's a bad headline question. I think that they don't want to be associated with any of the bad headlines surrounding Oakland, which kind of sucks. And if you're the Oakland Airport, what the hell, man?
I do like your Kahului analogy in Maui.
Yeah.
Because who knows it's Kahului. And I think that airport, the little 3-letter airport identifier is OOG.
Oh, yeah, that's right. OOG.
Right. So, I mean, who knows that? And how do you translate OOG to Kahului?
Right.
And yet it all works out. Right. Somehow people get there. They know how to leave the airport. They know how to get to the airport. It all seems to. So are we worried about something that doesn't really need changing here? Are we kind of, I mean, it doesn't seem like OAK is a real issue.
Yeah.
Now, I will say when my mom flies out of Oakland International, it's always a problem. She has a hard time getting there. She feels like it's kind of too big city for her. She always gets
in comparison
lost.
to San Francisco.
I know, it's the weirdest thing. Leaving Oakland International, she always takes a wrong turn. She ends up like deep in the city of Oakland and freaks out. So if she flies out of Oakland to Kahului, we always have to drive her there because she just can't handle it.
I find it easier.
No offense, Mom.
Now, I find it an easier, a smaller type of airport. So I'm like, I feel it's in and out. Right? Yeah. Like you go, the parking lot seems like it's right out front. You just kind of go in and you leave and it's right by the freeway. Yep. Oh, I've only flown, full disclosure, out of Oakland, I want to say maybe 1 or 2 times. I like to fly out of SJC, San Jose International Airport. Mineta, San Jose International Airport. Yeah, because it's right there and it's easy and I know it, know. If I can fly out of San Jose, I don't like to fly out of San Francisco or Oakland because I like to be home when I fly into town. I don't want to drive.
Well, there's always, when you fly out of San Francisco, the chance of fog delay or weather-related delay, or some type of ground stop. It's a little more complicated when you're flying out of SFO. So flying out of Oakland is usually pretty easy in and out. We do have an airport in the North Bay, Charles Schultz Airport in Santa Rosa, but it's so small that it still kind of can be really expensive to fly in and out. Yeah. So it's not like a major big airport where all the costs are kind of similar between the airports. It's always more here.
Yeah. I always, if you go on one of those flight comparison sites, I'm always comparing SFO, San Jose, and Oakland. And whichever one's cheaper is usually the one I'll consider. But San Jose always gets the edge because it's close. Yeah, I would say, I think that this whole thing has to do with headlines. Now, there's a lot of people defending Oakland. John saying Oakland is a wonderful city. Eric, lots of wonderful places in Oakland, plenty of museums. But then who was it that was asking it? Chris was saying, why doesn't Oakland get gentrified? I would say that in many parts it has, but it doesn't stop the crime from happening. Does that make sense? So you have people that are buying into Oakland and paying buku bucks for housing in Oakland, and yet the crime hasn't gotten under control. And so they're very upset about this. Who wants to spend a lot of money on a home in a town in which, they're not able to get a handle on their crime? So it's kind of both, I believe. But also the bad headlines surrounding the sports teams. If you see businesses, and I would say sports, huge, big business, picking up and leaving town, it makes you wonder, is this town just getting completely decimated? Now that brings me to the other thing. Did you see this story? And I feel really bad about, just kind of what the Oakland A's fans, both in Oakland and beyond, are feeling right now as the time with the team comes to a close. So there's this cafe. It's called the Treehouse Cafe,
It's a
and it's
cute
in Lake
little
Tahoe.
place.
Very cute town,
Yeah.
right? Very, very cute. Well, they are banning John Fisher, Oakland A's owner, from ever entering the store and getting anything. Here's the note. Well, I have a picture of it. This is the note. If you can't read it, it says, at Treehouse Cafe, we reserve the right to refuse service. We reserve the right to refuse service to any member of the Oakland Athletics ownership group, period. End of story. They will not allow anybody. Now, John Fisher apparently has a house nearby, and they said, nope, we are not serving John Fisher or anyone else. The note includes less safe for work fine print at the bottom that says Fisher can also F off, a sentiment likely shared by a good chunk of the fan base that was blindsided by the plan to move the team to Las Vegas after all of this time working on a plan to keep the team at Howard Terminal. Yeah, it says John Fisher, Rob Manfred, and Bud Selig can F off. That's the fine print right there on the bottom. Do you think any of this makes any sort of difference? The sell the team t-shirts, the chants, this banning from the Treehouse Cafe in Tahoe. I feel like this was John Fisher's plan all along. I can't imagine going through all of the hoops and negotiations and conversations regarding Howard Terminal to, yes, be blindsided with all of a sudden it's pretty much a done deal for Vegas. I understand people being extremely pissed off. It would piss me off as well. But if you think that some t-shirts and some chants are going to stop it, it's just not going to, you know?
Does he care? You know, is it going to affect him being hated around the Bay Area? Or is, yeah. Or does he care? Does he care what people here think? No.
No. That's what money and obliviousness gets you. He was never rooted in Oakland. He was never wanting to keep the team rooted in Oakland. Yeah. It sucks. And then there's a story about some Oakland A's fans apparently getting escorted from an Oakland A's game. They were wearing those Sell t-shirts, and the Chronicle reports that an A's fan said a female employee wearing A's credentials told the group this past Sunday they had to leave because the Sell t-shirts were not allowed on the stadium's suite level. The group was then escorted back to the area and left.
What?
See, there's just a-holes, man.
I mean, reset my earphones. What?
Yeah.
You can't wear something on the suite level? What is it? Offend the ownership? So no?
Yeah, probably. They're probably done hearing about it. They don't want to be taken to task for making a very devastating decision to the fan base. And I don't wish people ill, but I just hope that they don't get the numbers in Las Vegas, that the stadium needs to be sold out. I think for 36 years or something straight for them to make their money back or some sort of nonsense. And not only that, are they putting the money that they refuse to put in now when the team is in Oakland into the players, into salaries and things like that? So if they're not going to change the business aspect of running this team, I don't see how they think they're going to be a success in Las Vegas, where you are a tiny little itty bitty fish in a gigantic entertainment pond. You're going up against Adele and the Raiders, blah, 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 another Oakland team. There's so many options for people in Las Vegas that you're not going to find a fan base that is loyal to you, because the people watching your team are probably coming from out of town to watch their team. That's what happens with the Raiders. It's like all of a sudden they're playing the Niners, let's say, in Las Vegas. You have a bunch of Niner fans going out there. Hey, let's go to Vegas and watch the Niners play. Or they're playing any other team. That's the issue, right? Is that they're just going to be another list on the entertainment, field in Las Vegas, which has so many options for people. John says the Raiders left Oakland because Al Davis's jackass son. Yeah. With that stupid ass haircut. But you know me, I'm a Niner fan. I care less that the Raiders left. I do feel for Oakland. I do think that sucks, for fans to lose the team. I shared this story, I think, at Station X. A friend and I went to a dive bar, like a really dive bar in East San Jose a couple years ago. Well, it was probably right when the Raiders were leaving for Las Vegas, actually. And this woman had tons of Raiders gear on, and the bar had a ton of Raiders, memorabilia on the walls. And so, of course, I always take that as an opportunity to talk crap because I'm a Niner fan. But it was all in jest, and we were having a good time. And I asked this woman, I was like, they've left before, they came back, they're leaving again. And she's like, no, when they leave, I'm done. I'm selling all my stuff, and I'm done with this team because they don't care about the fans. And then I have friends that are fans of the Raiders, and they're like, nope, they're my team. I'm going to root for them in Las Vegas. So, depending on which side you fall on, for me, why am I a fan of a team? It's my hometown team. I like to watch their games. I don't have to go too far to watch their games. And that's how it should be. And then in return, they're loyal to this area. They want to be here. They want to be among the people. They want to, do charity drives and all sorts of fun events and all kinds of things. Not necessarily pick up and leave when an enticing offer from Las Vegas comes around, because that
But
sucks.
I think that people, they're not fair weather fans. When they're into the Raiders, often they're into the Raiders, and it doesn't matter where they go, because the Raiders isn't necessarily the ownership. It's the team and everything else that goes with it. And so for me, sometimes during news on Station X, I would report sports scores, just Bay Area sports scores that people would be interested in knowing. And so it's always, the 49ers, the A's, the Giants, and the Sharks. Right. Those are our major teams. Oh, and the Raiders, until they moved. And then I thought, well, do I still include the Raiders? Because there's a lot of fans here.
Right.
How do I handle that? But it's no longer a Bay Area team.
It's not.
So is it sayonara to them? Or is it, or do you keep, for the fans, do you keep saying how the Raiders are doing? It's always a kind of a conundrum.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, I think for a while you would definitely, if they play against a actual Bay Area based team. Anytime that the Raiders lose, I would lead with that because that's awesome. And that would be my direction, Kim. If I was the news director, I'd be like, if they lose, lead with it. Because then we can all laugh and point our finger, because I am so not a Raider fan. Beth says, I have a friend who worked for the Raiders front office. She said they moved because of corporate sponsorship, and they're raking in the dough in Las Vegas.
Okay.
But again, and that makes sense. But that has nothing to do with the fans. And that's what pisses me off. You know what I mean? It's the fans. You say you do these things for the fans. We love our fans. We love being here. This whole idea of rooted in Oakland was a bunch of BS. And again, as speaking as someone who is not a fan of the team, I don't know why I give a crap, but I do. I think it's messed up. I mean, look at how betrayed some people felt when the Niners moved from San Francisco to Santa Clara, and how every single game, the announcers have to make mention of the fact that they show the Golden Gate Bridge, but they're in Santa Clara. Yeah, because there's nothing. What are you going to show? Great America? Business Park? I mean, there's nothing in Santa Clara like the Golden Gate Bridge. Of course, you're going to show one of the iconic symbols of the Bay Area. It gets me aggravated. It's so stupid. And no, you did not, Ricky. You did not hear somebody say go Cowboys, because nobody likes the Cowboys on this show. That's just me. All right. Well, let's switch gears just a bit. Sorry, Oakland. I'm just going to say I don't believe that OAK should change its name. People know, people can Google. It's not that hard to figure out where the hell Oakland is for people who are not from this area. Now, from Oakland to Vallejo, you see this story. Vallejo police are proposing that they no longer respond to home alarms. Police say they spend more than 115 hours every month responding to home alarms, and most of them are false. In 2022, this statistic surprised me. In 2022, 98% of calls were false alarms. And with just 43 officers and supervisors patrolling the entire city of Vallejo, the department is understaffed. And so they recently passed a local emergency over the city's police shortage. Anyone have a home alarm? And have the cops accidentally come? I've never had to hear because I don't have I don't have like that kind of alarm system that would bring the police. It doesn't trigger something like that.
Mhm.
My parents do. And I remember, I think I'd come home from someplace and I totally brain farted on the code. And so it does that whole countdown. Like
You're
you
like,
enter it, it's
no!
like, and
Oh
I'm
my
like
God!
freaking out. And so I don't do well with stress. And I think I had Marley with me. And I'm like, get out of the house, get out of the house. And it is ear piercingly loud. And I'm just screaming and I'm trying to call my parents. And then I had the alarm company calling me for the code because I'm on the list of people. And it was a nightmare. But no cops came out. I just feel like if you have a home alarm system, that
Mhm.
company should have private security. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? To
Yeah.
go first instead of calling the police department. I feel, and I don't have anything that's hooked up that way.
Right.
Denise says, I have an ADT sign up, no functioning alarm though. I know so many people that do that. They act like they have the alarm system as a deterrent. I have a
Yeah.
home alarm. It's my dog who will let you know when anybody is within 50 friggin' feet of the house. Bark, 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 bark. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. That
Yeah.
dog will bark. So
We have a home alarm, and I think if it goes off, it first notifies the alarm company, and then they call, and then maybe send the police. I don't know how it works, but it seems like, and I get that Vallejo is in a state of emergency because they don't have enough police officers, and this is a
Mhm.
horrible situation. But it's not a big deal until it is a big deal. And
Right.
what if somebody's tied up and needs help, and you're not going because we have so many home alarms, we just can't respond to them all.
And what
Well,
kind of,
then,
again, headlines, right? We went from Oakland to Vallejo. What kind of headline is that? To people that want to break into your home, right? That's
also,
the
I would argue
problem.
if you were considering moving to Vallejo, does that give you pause?
Yes.
Like, I guess I'm on my own here, right?
And that's exactly the point, Kim. I feel like people feel abandoned a bit when it comes to policing in some cities. It's like, sorry, we just don't have enough officers. And the conspiracy minded part of me, and I always pause when I think this because there's no way to prove it. Is there a concerted effort within some members of law enforcement to continue to promote this? Like you wanted a reimagining of policing and it pissed off so many officers or
Yeah.
higher ups that they're like, well, then screw you guys then. We're either not going to show, we're not going to be in your city, the cities that kind of led the way on this reimagining of policing, and see how you like it. See how you like it when there's no police.
I would like to think it's not politics. I would like to think that they're just in real trouble with the lack of staff, and they just, you know, something has to give, right? You're down now to bare bones staff, so you can only do like the big stuff, responding to physical violent assaults or, reports of a guy with a gun wandering close to a populated area. Like these are you look at the priority list of how to
Right.
keep the public the safest, and an alarm going off, at a little house at the end of a dead end street. Well, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I,
I'm
I I'm not arguing that it's a good idea, but I don't necessarily think it's politically motivated because of the whole defund the police move. I legitimately think they're in trouble. They're in trouble because they have no staff, and they just,
And why do they have no staff though? I mean, that's what I'm
yeah,
saying is like,
yeah,
I think some of it is obviously the cost of living, which a lot of
yeah.
officers can't
It
afford to
all
live in
plays
the
in. You're
areas.
right.
It all
Yeah,
plays into it. And then I do think that there's a percentage, and I don't know how big of a percentage of
yeah.
cops that are like, well, screw you. If this X, Y, and Z city wants to defund the police, peace out. Figure it
Mhm.
out on your own. And I actually understand that. I just wish that there was a loyalty to cities, if that makes sense. Kind of,
Yeah.
this is my hometown, or this is where I want to live, and I'm going to make it work. Now, Chris, I love this comment because it's interesting. An American flag is a better criminal deterrent. Do you mean because you think that the people inside are armed? Like that was my initial thought, Chris. Is oh, those people probably have a gun because the American flag can mean certain things to certain people. I don't know. I feel like We need more police officers, especially in a lot of these cities. We're dealing with so many problems. I mean, between Antioch and what they're trying to do, I guess they have an interim police chief that's coming in. Good luck, buddy. To having to replace so many police officers, to Vallejo saying, you know what, we can't help protect your homes. Which, if there was a moment in which I would call the cops, it probably is it somebody's breaking into my house.
I would ask, why am I paying property taxes? Why am I paying taxes in this community? Oh, really? Because when we all get together, we pay taxes so we have roads, firefighters,
Right.
police department, schools. So if you're telling me I'm not getting a service that I'm paying for, then I
Right.
would argue you need to cut my property taxes. If you're not going to
Yeah.
give me the service, then you give me the discount.
Yeah. Vicky and Sausalito, what if understaffed nurses decided they were entitled to only offer care when they felt like it? Very true. Very true. Ricky,
I'm
a great
sorry.
point.
If you have
Mm.
cancer, we can help you. But if you just come in with a laceration where you need stitches, you're going to have to go home and suture yourself up. Here's
Exactly.
a suture kit and figure it out.
Exactly. And that's $1,000. Thank you. Ricky says neighborhood watch. We all know the neighbors. Funny,
Mhm.
kind of creepy story I want to share with you. So neighborhood watch. I like my new neighborhood. I really like my neighbors. We had a yard sale over the weekend. Some of the neighbors came out. One of our neighbors, I was gone doing something. And I go back and my husband hands me a card, a business card from our neighbor across the street who had come over, introduced themselves because we hadn't met them yet. If you ever need anything, which is really, really sweet, but I thought it was
That's
funny
nice.
that it was like on a business card. But I'm at the pool yesterday with my parents, and apparently there's this guy, and my dad, your parents are always so proud of you, right? And I think that he got into a conversation years ago about what
Yeah.
I do for a living, and so we were kind of cracking. He's like, there's Nikki, and it's always so weird when people do that, Kim, because we're in radio. We're not in the business. I mean, now I do this, but we're not in the business of being recognized. If
No.
somebody recognized me, it's kind of creepy, right? And so I said hi, and we were just kind of chit chatting, and I'm just kind of floating away and talking to my parents. And then all of a sudden, he's like, I knew you before that, though. I could Google. I know that, and he like laundry listed like my early career of like working in San Jose, and I was like, really sweet on one hand, and on the other hand, I'm like, neighborhood watching a little too closely, I think. But he lives on my street, so I
That's
wanted to be
nice,
friendly.
though.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
My
it was-
mom
it
did
was
this to
pretty
me
cool.
once. She apparently the mailman, the new mailman, because we had a mailman a mail lady that retired, and she was amazing. We all talked to her out in the yard. She was great. So this new guy comes, and apparently he's a KGO listener. Fantastic.
Nice.
Well, my mom tells him, "Oh, well, my daughter works there, and whatever, and who I am and everything." And then she proceeds to drag him up to the front porch to meet me. I'm in my nightgown. I have no makeup on. This
I
is
know.
not
Did
the
you love
moment where
parents?
I'm going to
Did
be
you love
greeting the
parents?
public.
Exactly.
I'm like, don't do that. I mean, it's such an invasion also because like I don't know this person, and now they're seeing, my messy house and me in my nightgown standing here, and it's like any illusion they had shattered that I was somebody else has just come crashing down to say, this is who she is. Like here she is in all her glory.
Yeah, I think that your
coulda-
mom was just so proud of you. You know
I
what I mean?
know,
Like, it doesn't
yeah.
matter how old we get. Like, our parents are always like, she's on the radio or she has a YouTube
But now
show.
I see him down around town, and he always wants to talk politics, and he always
I
waves,
know,
and I'm like,
I
he saw me at
know.
my very worst. Yeah.
I love I love our community. I love meeting people, but I always get taken aback when people seem to know my background and then I
Yeah.
see them in public because it's different when you're, on the radio or on YouTube versus standing in
Right.
front of somebody. And I always get the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You look different than I thought you would look. That's what
Right.
people always tell people on the
Yeah.
radio. And I go, yeah, this is me. This is absolutely me. Just to
You know what people
address them.
thought of me?
Hmm.
I get all the time. This is the craziest thing.
What?
I thought you were black.
Oh, interesting. I get that when
And
people just meet me.
Some people don't believe that I am who I say I am because they're so convinced
Trying to close my
that
eyes while you talk.
I'm a black woman. And I'm like, I'm not a black woman. I'm a white woman. We had a coworker, Terry Adams, whose mother was convinced. And no matter how much Terry told her, no, mom, she's white. Her mom was like, That's a black woman. Nope. Mm-mm. So it's funny what people's perception of you on the radio is versus when they
Right.
see you in person. They're like, what? Yeah.
No. We have another colleague who barged in to the studio. This was years ago. Carolyn,
Yeah.
our friend Carolyn, she barged in, and I don't know how I said it. I don't know how it came up on air, but I had said that I was Puerto Rican and Italian, and she barges in. She's like, "Wait a minute, you're not half black?" I go, "No," and Carolyn is mixed, and I was like,
Yeah.
"No," and she's like, "Really?" And I was like, "I think I know," and I go, "No," and it's so funny when people say that to me because I get that. I've got that my whole entire life because I
Yeah.
am mixed, right? And so people
Yeah.
just kind of make the most general mixed, and then they learn that I'm not. And I always tell people like it's not that that it's a bad thing. I'm just not. I'm Puerto
Yeah.
Rican and Italian. That's what I am. And it's always so funny when people make these generalizations about you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do want to address something real quickly before we move on. I wasn't making the generalization, Randy. I was addressing Chris's generalization about the American flag in the front of your house, meaning you most likely are a gun owner. I'm not saying that. I was just inferring that from Chris's comment.
That's an awfully big generalization.
It is.
I'll tell you, I'm married to a man who served in the Marines. We are not conservative people, and yet there is an American flag, a big old flag, and a United States Marine Corps flag that are often seen flying outside of our house. Does that mean that we're, armed to the teeth? No. Does that mean that we're conservative people? No.
No.
So it's,
I don't know if he meant conservative, but he meant gun owner.
People think that this infuriates me. You've hit on a pet peeve that somehow the American flag was co-opted during the Trump administration to mean that you're a Republican or that you're a Trumper or whatever. Well, you know what? You can't have the flag. The flag belongs to everyone. It's
Yes.
America.
Yep.
It belongs to the liberal, liberalist of them all. And it
Yep.
belongs to the most Republican person you can imagine and everyone in between. So no, you don't get to have the flag. The flag
No.
is for everyone. My sister wouldn't even fly a flag outside of her house because she didn't want people thinking she was a Trumper. And I'm like, no, the minute you start doing that is the minute you give them the flag. And I refuse.
Yeah, I don't give it to him either. The problem is it's not just Trumpers. It would happen way before that. Republicans with the flag on the lapel, this kind of projecting I'm a true American because I do X, Y, and Z. If you're a true American, then you wouldn't have supported what happened on January 6th. Then you wouldn't keep promoting the big lie, all of these sorts of things. But yeah, it does suck. And that's a pet peeve of mine as well, because my husband also a former military. We do have an American flag that we hang and we put up pretty regularly, and we are not farthest thing from it, from conservative. So, I just wanted to make that clear. People are just trying to ask all sorts of questions. Look, Kim thought the same thing as Carolyn when she first met me too. Did you?
Really? I didn't.
No, right? Well, I mean, not that I take a poll of people when they first met me of what they think about me, but yeah. Is Nikki my birth name or is it short for another name? Are you trying to steal my identity, Brian? Are you trying to steal my identity? No. Nikki is not my birth name. Nicole is. So there you go. But I don't.
Well, that's your birth name. It's just a shortened version of your birth
nickname.
name.
I've always gone by Nikki, and if I was a boy, I was going to be Nicholas. So I was always going to be a Nikki.
So I have not always gone by Kimberly. It's always been Kim.
Yeah,
but Kimberly, Kim
Kimmy
is
Mac.
my birth name.
K-Mac, Kimmy Mac.
K-Mac, yeah.
So many nicknames. It's like we're pets. You know what I mean? But yeah. So I don't know. I feel like we are such at a tipping point, though, around the Bay Area, just to kind of go back to kind of policing and those sorts of things. Can I play you just another thing that, another Bay Area city is dealing with? And that's San Francisco. Supervisor Matt Dorsey, I don't know how many of you are aware of it, but he's very open with the fact that he's a recovering addict. Okay. And I love his perspective when you talk about what we need to do regarding the drug problem in this country. He was actually on this town hall last week or last weekend. It was, I forget the name of the channel that it was on, but it was hosted by Chris Cuomo, who was formerly on CNN. And he was brought in to kind of talk about the drug and crime problem around the country. And he gave a unique perspective. And he was saying on that town hall that we need to start working with law enforcement to get and to stop the blatant drug use that is happening on the streets, that it shouldn't be allowed, that it is a crime. You cannot just do drugs in the middle of the street, but we're not arresting people for that. But he added the caveat that he thinks that there needs to be an investment in what he calls jail health, which is, let's get these guys into a drug program, get them, to stop being, help them get clean and not addicted, get a job, become a member of society, rehabilitate them, I should say. And so he's now come out and say that although he was a supporter in the beginning, he is no longer supporting these quote unquote wellness centers in San Francisco. And he was a huge proponent. One of them was in his neighborhood. Let me play you just a little bit of this news report from KTVU. And I think it has to do with the fact of the plan and what it's turned into is not what people envisioned when they started talking about this.
This building at 4446 Street near the Hall of Justice in San Francisco was identified as a future wellness center for drug users, a place to get users off the streets and closer to care and services. It's an attempt to solve the city's drug problems, but also a concern for people working at the beauty supply business next door.
I think it would be bad for our business. I think that they should find another place to put it.
San Francisco Supervisor Matt Dorsey, who represents the neighborhood, originally voted for the idea, but he sent a letter to Mayor London Breed Friday saying he no longer supports that plan.
There was going to be 6 different sites in 6 different neighborhoods to relieve the pressure. That narrowed down to 3 sites, one in the Tenderloin, one in the Mission, and one in South of Market. Then it narrowed to 1 site.
Dorsey also says the city attorney has ruled that none of the wellness centers can have supervised consumption sites because they're illegal under federal law. Dorsey says he no longer thinks the wellness hub will be effective in reaching drug users.
When I signed up for this, the idea was that Wellness Hub was going to be a safe consumption site.
Instead, he wants the $18.9 million in funding diverted to help incarcerated drug users through jail health services.
So, and I hate to say this because I do agree with the statement that you cannot incarcerate your way out of drug addiction, right? Or a drug problem, but it's the start on the path to it. So I remember back in the day when marijuana was illegal in California, right? If you got busted smoking marijuana or, possession of marijuana, you had to go through a drug diversion program. You had to. The judge was like, either you go to, do this or you do that, but you have to go through this drug diversion program for a certain number of weeks. And why can't we go back to that? Like, why can we not see people bent over at the hip, high on whatever drug they're on, and be like, this is not legal, and take them and put them into some sort of program? $18 million? Yes, I do think that would be better spent. Absolutely would think it would be better spent than on wellness centers. And Vicky and Sausalito, I completely agree with you. These wellness centers, yes, it can bring services to people that need them. But if they're using drugs, that's against the law. That should be against the law and should get them automatically taken into a place. And we need to stop diluting the funds with so many different freaking programs. Let's focus. Let's focus on some sort of program that could be in addition to, the Department of Corrections, and get these people actual help, not talk to them. Because what do you hear all of the time? You hear, it takes like 8 or 9 times of reaching out to either a homeless person or a drug addicted person before they even think about taking advantage of services. Well, screw that. How about not giving them any chances? You are going into this program and you are staying there. I mean, obviously that requires the infrastructure and the program to be set up, but I feel like we could afford it if we would stop diluting the money by spreading it out on all these different nonprofits and different programs trying different things. It's hard. It's really, really hard.
So I know prison doesn't necessarily help people that are drug addicted, but it does help the neighborhood, the area where the people were selling drugs and where crime was happening. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we complain about San Francisco. They're selling drugs in an open air market, right? Look at the people coming to buy the drugs. Well, I don't necessarily think it's a long-term solution to not get people help, But if I don't want crime and I don't want people selling drugs in this neighborhood that we're trying to clean up, you got to put these folks somewhere.
Yeah, you do. I mean, but it's the fact that it's not there and set up yet pisses me off.
Yeah.
It's like, how long have we been dealing with this problem? It's really, really past time. It is way past time for us to do something about it. And that's why we get the bad headlines. Okay. Coming up, I want to talk about education. Governor Gavin Newsom, pretty upset. He tweeted today. Was it today? It was yesterday. He tweets Florida's latest curriculum featuring cartoon Christopher Columbus explaining slavery. And they're saying it's no big deal. It's through this program called Prager University. Now, Florida is going to allow it in their classrooms, apparently. And I saw some of you when I was teasing this saying, isn't this the same as banning other things? There is a huge difference besides banning books from libraries and allowing an actual curriculum inside the classroom. But if you disagree, let me know in the comments. We're going to talk PragerU, teaching kids about slavery and how it's not all that bad. And why do you think there are some conservative groups
ridiculous
trying to do that? Like, why do we need to couch slavery in a way to make people feel better about it? You let me know in the comments. We'll talk about all of that, plus so much more. And before we go to Kim's news, please click that thumbs up button. It helps support the show. Here's Kim with the headlines.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Well, good morning, everyone. Let us begin with former Vice President Mike Pence, who will indeed be on stage for the first Republican presidential primary debate. His campaign announced this week that it crossed the threshold of 40,000 unique donors required to qualify for the August 23rd event in Milwaukee. So he will be on stage. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, Senator Tim Scott, and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie have already clinched their spots for the debate stage as well.
Okay. So, and what date was this? Did you say?
This is on
August
23rd in Milwaukee.
Oh, that's my dad's birthday. All right. I'm going to have to tune into this nonsense, of course, but
look at, you know what you're doing with your dad? You're watching the debate that night.
Oh, I will not be watching the debate with my father. That is not happening at all. No, thank you.
Oh, that's funny.
I mean, he'll be watching it, which will be nice, right? But I will be watching it, even though I feel like the reverse is never true. Do you feel like conservatives never want to watch like the Democratic debate because they don't want to hear the lies? They're like, well, why don't you watch it and make a decision on your own? So there you go.
I don't know. Well, the polls are open this morning for Ohio's big August special election. Yes, the singular item appearing on the ballots would require future state constitutional amendments to get support from 60% of voters. Why is this a big deal that this is happening in Ohio? Well, the proposed rule has seen support and opposition from a wide range of political advocacy groups because of its potential impact on future measures, including reproductive rights, an amendment going before the voters in the fall. So that's why it's a big deal. This is a sad situation. This community, this family, still hurting. And now you have the cousin of the Uvalde, Texas school shooter behind bars for allegedly making terroristic threats. Nathan Cruz reportedly told his sister he wanted to pull off a mass shooting too. She went to the San Antonio police, who took him into custody. Oh, I'm so grateful for family members who do this.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, it's got to be hard to turn in a family member, but you know, look at the lives that you saved. Look at the, you know, the sadness and the sorrow and you have to be able to turn in a family member.
Yeah, absolutely.
A new tool on Google will alert you when you appear in a search result. Yeah, so now you get to know when you appear in a search, and this tool will help you remove personal information. The Google Dashboard is an improvement on the Results About You tool that the company rolled out last year to help users stay on top of their information and remove results containing their email addresses, home addresses, phone numbers from the search results page. Removing a Google result won't wipe it from the internet. The tool is only available in the United States for now. Well, better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
This is a sad situation out of the Southern California area.
Yeah,
There's
this
this
story's crazy.
Yeah, Southwest Airlines is being sued now by this mom from Los Angeles for racial discrimination. She says that employees accused her of trafficking her biracial daughter on a 2021 flight from San Jose to Denver. The woman says police were waiting for her and her daughter when they landed, and that she was told by a Southwest flight attendant and called the police about a possible case of human trafficking. She says, "You would not have thought that my daughter was being trafficked unless I was white and she was of a different race." The flight attendant says, "Wait a minute, you came aboard the plane, you weren't seated together, you demanded to be sat together." The mom says she just asked other passengers if they would mind moving so she could sit with her 10-year-old daughter. But apparently the flight attendant said, "No, you were demanding that you sit together. They were acting strangely, whatever." So that's
I
why.
want to sit next to my daughter. Like, that's okay. Whatever.
Yeah. Oh. In Sacramento, the law provides prosecutors, well, in California as a whole, the law provides prosecutors with a tool to steer their cases away from particular judges if they think that judge is prejudiced. It appears the Sacramento DA Tien Ho's office is doing just that. And apparently it's not sitting well with some defense attorneys. They say the Governor Brown appointed judge, Stephen Acquisto, is a fair judge. There's speculation the situation might stem from Judge Acquisto's ruling in a case that came under California's revised felony murder law, allowing murder accomplices to seek new sentences. Acquisto's ruling in one case resulted in a defendant serving 15 to life to be set free, despite opposition from the DA's office. So if the DA wants somebody tough on crime, now they're going to a different judge and steering all their cases away from Judge Acquisto. Anyway, big to do over that. And also a big to do near Disneyland, where we have some hotels being ripped down. There are 2 budget hotels in Anaheim slated for demolition and redevelopment. Last year, a developer purchased the 24-room Budget Inn, and right next door, the 44-room Days Inn, pictured here, for a grand total of about $20 million. The properties are within walking distance of the Disneyland Resort and the entrance to downtown Disney, very close by. No timeline for the wrecking ball to start swinging, but a much larger hotel is said to be in the planning stages. So goodbye Days Inn, goodbye Budget Inn.
Wow.
Instead, you're going to get a more kind of grandiose place.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see what happens.
And I don't know why this next story surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, I saw this one too. It's yeah, me too. I don't know why it surprised me either.
I don't know why. I mean, okay. So entertainment and TV host Wayne Brady is coming out as pansexual.
Yeah.
He made the announcement in an interview with People magazine on Monday. What does pansexual mean? Well, it means that Brady finds people attractive regardless of their sex or gender, or as he referred to it, bisexual with an open mind. It means you love the person, not the gender, right?
Yeah.
So you're more attracted to the personality, the soul, than you care whether they are male, female, trans, whatever. Like they could be whatever. Yeah, it just means you're open to loving anyone no matter what. Okay.
As David on Schitt's Creek used to say, I like the wine, not the label. So there you go.
There you go. Wayne Brady. Yeah.
There you go. I mean, you know what? More power to you. You know, I've heard stories about Wayne Brady kind of being like a diva, you know, when he does his shows or whatever. But I think that this is good PR, you know, just in general so I'm watching this show that my daughter loves the books and the show of. It's called Heartstopper. And it's basically like it's a series on Netflix that was from the books. And it's it's completely LGBTQ. Okay. But when you watch it and you see obviously the trials and tribulations of being part of the LGBTQ community and what that means. They have a transgender person on there. There's, gay people, lesbians, and they're in high school and they're trying to find out about themselves and what have you. It's encouraging when people who have a platform and a name that people know come out and talk about these sorts of things, because unless you go out and watch series like this on Netflix or something like that, you may never come across anyone that is part of this community. So I do applaud Wayne Brady, whether he's a diva or not, who cares? Because I think that this is really pretty cool.
Okay, I'm going to say something that you might go, Kim, you just don't get it.
Okay.
But when you have all these words, there's all these different kind of sexualities, pansexual, this sexual, that sexual. Is it all just really kind of come down to the fact that you're bi, that you like both genders or whomever?
But you can like people that don't consider. I think that if you understand that there's
people
non-binary,
yeah,
You know what I think it's more like, and this is what I try to just kind of think about whenever I talk about this, is that sexuality is a spectrum, right? And back in the day, it was so boxed. You checked a box, and this is what you liked, and do not deviate from that box, or you're a weirdo.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so now I feel like people are coming out and coming up with all of these words because they don't want to be boxed in. And you know what? I think that everyone should just be like that, right? Like I like what I like. Now you may think that's a really strict box, but that's fine. But that's where I fall on this spectrum of sexuality and love and attraction, and then it can fluctuate. And I don't think that it's the same thing as bi. I think that when you start bringing in, the transgender people and non-binary people, I would just say I love who I love, and it doesn't really matter. I like the wine, not the label. Makes it easier.
Franco from Danville wants to know, would you say pansexual is like a BFF? No, because I think there's a sexual relationship there, right?
I don't know, like a best friend forever? Is that what BFF is?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that a pansexual is like a BFF? I would
it's
say
like
that.
It's a
I don't want to have sex
romantic
with my
situation.
BFF. Right? I don't have sex with my BFF. I no, exactly.
Flo says sexuality is fluid, regardless of the boxes that we check.
Yeah, exactly. You might just be in a mood, and that's the whole thing. If people would stop being so offended by how other people love each other and who they choose to love, the world would be a lot more friendly. Stop judging people. And Eric writes, bi means attracted to both men and women. Pan means attracted to all genders, cis, trans. Yeah. Exactly. So
that makes more sense to me. I get it. Yeah.
So, and I think that I hope that one day we just move beyond the words, right? It's that we just say, who do you like? Is there anyone you like? Or is there anybody that you're in love with? Who is your partner? That's why the first partner, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, chose first partner, because she and Gavin are obviously hoping for a day when it doesn't matter and you don't need to be identified as the first lady or first gentleman or whatever, because they understand that people don't necessarily need to be boxed in so much anymore.
And to answer John's question, I don't think so. No. And that kind of the way that you phrase the question there kind of assumes that it's not, not just a human being. And I don't think that's the case. I think you're looking at, you could be attracted to any person romantically. And so there's no kind of, the lines are not drawn, as Nikki was saying, they're not drawn into a little box, that you're more able to see the person and enjoy the person no matter their gender or whatever. Exactly. So I agree with that. Anonymous writes, Chris Stuckman, movie reviewer on YouTube, has a video explaining his pansexuality and what it is to him and his partners. That's cool. Maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah. And then some people are saying, well, if you're, let's just say bi, right? I mean, aren't you worried? It's like, no, I mean, I'm straight, but I'm married. There's a bunch of men out there, right? I'm not having sex with any of them. I'm in a committed relationship. So it doesn't matter if you're attracted to all genders or whatever. If you're in a relationship, and you both choose to be in a monogamous relationship, then that's what you should be in,
I have to read this one from Flo. Flo, by the way, who just put on a really successful theater production in New York City. I'm
Oh,
so proud of
congratulations,
Flo.
Flo.
Super awesome. But Flo says there is a line in the play The Boys in the Band where one character says, with the right music and the right wine, there are damn few who aren't curious.
Yeah, there you go. It's amazing what a little loss of inhibition can do. And it's not wrong. It's just letting all of those, pressures of society, right?
Yeah.
Dictating who you need to be and how you need to act, go. And don't you think that that's so freeing? Who wants to be so confined by what society tells you have to be when it's really not based in anything? I mean, that's just like gender that people just don't seem to get. Gender roles are society based.
Yeah.
It's based on where you are and who you interact with and what their norms are. It's not a solid thing.
I think Wayne Brady is a massive talent. I always have thought he was really good. When he used to be on Whose Line Is It Anyway? And they would have the, I don't know, sing in a certain style or do this or do that. He always just was wildly talented. And I don't really care who he sleeps with, honestly.
No, I don't care either, but I think that it does something for the community, right? To be like, I'm a face that people know, I am a name, and this is a thing, right? And so, yeah. Perry Joe says, as someone in the political middle, I'm not pro or con. And that's how it should be. Live and let live. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And Vicky says, except for pedophilia, which is always wrong. Well, yeah. No. Children are not part of this at all.
No, we're not talking about that. No, we're talking about of course, consenting adult relationships, right?
Exactly.
Oh, the Nikki Medoro Show is crowdfunded, which means we rely on you.
Yes,
you can find us at thenikkimedoroshow.com. That's the website. That's where the Patreon and PayPal links are. Of course, the Super Chat is live, and we appreciate you so very much. I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, so, kind of along the same lines of how we're educating ourselves, how we're educating our children about what it means to live in 2023. Look, this is not the 1950s. This is not the 1850s, right? We're evolving, I think, mentally of how we understand each other. But at the same time, history is history. We need to learn from it, lest we repeat it, and many things we do not want to repeat, right? Now, there is and I'm going to put this in quotes, a university called Prager University. Just to be clear,
it's a university of lies.
On its own website, Prager University says it is not an accredited university, nor do we claim to be. We do not offer degrees, but we do provide educational, entertaining, pro-American videos. So you can take that for whatever it means.
Well, gee, I'm pro-American. That must be for me.
Right. Okay. So now Dennis Prager is the guy behind it. He's a radio talk show host and columnist. He's a conservative, a strong conservative. He has written articles regarding, when a woman says she isn't in the mood and she's in a marital relationship, how she should never deny her husband sex. He's made some controversial
he
videos.
Can go straight to hell is what he can do. Yeah.
Well, apparently, Florida is going to begin allowing some material from Prager University into their classrooms. Here's a little bit of a report, and pay attention because Christopher Columbus makes a cameo about what kids in Florida, of course, will be exposed to.
The Department of Education just approved the use of PragerU materials in public school.
Can we turn it up a little?
Among the narrators, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens.
Republicans sit here and say, well, Democrats did this, but you're doing the same thing.
Rady is not alone in her criticism. Many people point to videos on the PragerU website that they say are meant to indoctrinate children. For example, this video features two kids who go back in time to talk with Christopher Columbus. Columbus suggests that he was justified in his violence against Native Americans.
Being taken as a slave is better than being killed, no? You're from 500 years in the future? How can you come here to the 15th century and judge me by your standards from the 21st century?
Okay, so that's a little bit of it. I want to, if it's not loud enough, I don't want to stay on it too long. But so they're basically saying and couching slavery as one, well, it's better that they're a slave than that we kill them. I'm sure there's many slaves that wish they could have just died instead of being put through the torture that they were on. And two, is it right to judge the behavior from the past when it was, quote unquote, the norm to have slaves under today's, beliefs and what we've learned about the horrors of slavery? Now, I understand that if you are going to, let's say, homeschool your kid, okay, or you are in a private education type of thing, you get to choose how your child is going to be educated. That's on you, right? Like, you get to decide it. But allowing this in public education is where I have a problem. The Florida Department of Education said in a statement they reviewed PragerU kids, and determined the material aligns to Florida's revised civics and government standards. So you're telling me that Florida has decided how kids should be taught history. No critical race theory, looking at the intersection of race and law throughout this country's history, which is what CRT actually is, versus people that have no idea, has never taken the college level class, and are just making assumptions because of what Tucker Carlson tells them. That's wrong. But Christopher Columbus saying it wasn't all bad. Most of them lived, and how dare you?
Better to be a slave than killed, no? No. For a lot of people, no.
It's propaganda. It's absolute propaganda.
It's
and no one's going to tell me any different. It's and I don't need to debate Dennis Prager, who, again, yes, he can sell his commentary on radio stations. He can create an unaccredited, quote unquote, university. That is his right. And if people like him and want to listen to him, great. My problem is when you start including it in a public school curriculum, an unaccredited university that aligns with the conservative viewpoint, teaching history to these children. It's freaking ridiculous.
So he said something that I've rolled around in my brain a lot, which is applying to standards of today to history, right? But I don't think a standard of being a human being would ever say that owning a person, enslaving a person, beating a
whipping
person,
a person, raping a person. Yeah,
right.
no.
That's no. I think we can all get behind that no matter what era you've come from, that's wrong. You morally know that's wrong, right? I find more of a gray area, and this might not be popular to say, but racism. So back in the day, in our grandparents' days, you could say the N-word and it was an accepted word. Or I remember my grandfather called people colored people, which you don't say now. That's offensive term, right? So there were things that were said that were accepted back then, where our standards have changed and we have changed with the times, and we understand that the term is offensive. We don't use it, right? But in those days, it wasn't understood. So in that way, applying today's standards to speech back then, or what people said back then, might not be fair because they didn't know. And I'll give it to them. They weren't, maybe if they had been made aware, maybe, it wasn't the right time. I don't know all of that, but I can just say, looking back in time, and I've heard Oprah Winfrey say that racism has to die out, right? It has to be certain generations have to go in order for us to move on to the next thing. And can you apply the next thing and the way we think today to previous generations? I don't know that that's the case in every case. That does not apply to enslaved people, because I think that's a moral decision where you're hurting people that transcends the era that you're in, and is just a moral issue. I don't know. What do you think?
I think I'll disagree a little bit regarding, the most recent generation, let's say the boomers or what have you,
Mhm.
right? And their parents. And the reason why I think they didn't, I disagree with it, they didn't know any better, it's how they were raised or whatever, is because of the actions of those that use the N-word, right? We know, about the discrimination, the name calling. I I do not think that if someone is yelling the N-word in 1950 to a black person, that they're saying it because, oh, I didn't know any better. You know what you're doing. You're insulting a person. You're discriminating against them.
Yeah.
It can't feel good. It doesn't look good. You see the economic devastation that happened to people back there. You're not blind, but you're not you, Kim, but people use that time. Well, it's just what people did. It's just what people said. Did it feel
Yeah.
good? Do you think that it felt good to that person? Are you so blind that you don't know that when you call a black person the N-word, the shame on their face, when you tell them to sit in the back of the bus, they're not allowed, they can't drink at your water fountain, when you're protesting a
Right.
little girl trying to go to school and yelling at them, that you think, oh, well, it was the time. No, you knew you were an a-hole. You
So
knew you were racist.
Again, it wasn't in every circumstance,
Right.
but let me tell you this story. All right.
Okay.
You're not calling a person the name. You're not downgrading a person, making them feel less than. But it's a case of using the N-word when you just are not, because you've always heard it, because maybe your family said it, because maybe your friend group said it, because maybe society said it was acceptable, and so it became part of your vernacular. So my grandfather he used to take us to the I know, high class vacation. He used to take us to John Esquaga's Nugget
Ah,
once
okay,
this
okay.
summer. Okay, so
Yeah,
we'd
yeah.
go to Reno to John Esquaga's Nugget. And it was a big thing because he loved Eddie Arnold, he was a country music star.
Okay.
And so they're great memories with my grandfather. Okay, it's just really fun to be with. He was a wonderful man, but grew up in a different era. So he used to slip the person seating us, the usher, money so we'd get a better seat. In the olden days, this is how it
That
was done.
worked, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
And the usher then took us to the far back, even though he'd been given
The money.
the extra tip. So my grandfather looks at him and turns to us and says, "Where are you taking us? N-word heaven?"
Oh.
And my
Ooh.
sister and I, our mouths dropped open. We had
Mhm.
never heard him use this word before. We started crying. We're kids. We're like, I don't know, 10, she's probably, I don't know, 5 or 6. And we're beside ourselves that our beloved grandfather would use this word. And he's surprised that we have this reaction.
Right.
He doesn't understand it because to him, he might not be calling a person this word, but the use of this word to him is a normal thing,
Right.
even though we've never heard him say it before.
Right.
And so I guess I look at that era and I look at the people thinking, he wasn't a bad guy.
But he wasn't meaning it as a compliment. It's not like he was using his name. He
the
was
word
he
was
was saying
ugly.
N-word heaven,
Like
and not as a compliment. It's
that's
an
where
insult.
that's where the people of other races go, right?
Yeah.
No, it was ugly. It was an ugly moment, but he didn't understand until we taught him.
And now he
Until
would
little
never.
kids,
Yeah.
until his little grandchildren freaked out and said, "That is not acceptable. This is not the way we do things." And so it was a different generation saying, "No,
Yeah.
this is not the way we're going to think." And so that's what makes me think when this fellow Prager says we're applying different standards now, the standards we have now to different eras. The thinking was different. I'm not excusing that it's blatant out and out racism, and I would never condone the use of the N-word. It was a good thing that he used it so he could be schooled and taught not to in that moment. Yeah, it's humiliating and disappointing to see someone you love and adore not get that and use
Yeah.
those words.
Yeah,
And you're
absolutely.
thinking, how can this be? Like, you're a really good person. How do you not understand that this is downgrading and this is a bad thing? So I guess I
Well,
just
because
feel
nobody
like
actually probably ever called him on it either. I mean, he never had an
Yeah.
opportunity to use it apparently. And when he did, back when he used to say it, I guess, nobody
Yeah.
would cry and be upset about it. And now he is noticing that it's an awful word to
It
say.
was
And
a
there's no
big thing in our
name, there's
family.
no reason to use that
Yeah.
word, I should
He
say.
apologized to us. He said he would never use the word again. Like, we were really upset over it. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because I have so many good memories of him, but that's still a moment that sticks out
Yeah.
as something.
John writes in, this move by Florida is going to cause the GOP to suffer more,
Yeah.
look more racist when all that BS from the Prager University is brought to light. I never knew Prager had a full school. But this is the thing: is
Full
how
school.
do we get more people to become conservative? Because again,
Yeah.
Republicans keep losing the popular vote. More Americans are Democratic leaning, but they use fear and all this nonsense to push them the other way. And so they're like, how come this country seems to be moving more liberal, which isn't liberal, it's just more equal, right? That's what we want. Inclusive, which, oh my
Mhm.
God, because
Thoughtful.
inclusive means I don't get to have an upper hand on people like I used to. And so they're like, we have to go to the schools, we have to start them young. And that's what this Prager University nonsense is. But one of the outreach people, Jill Simonian, she says children in public schools are taught to be ashamed of America. She says, I was not getting any choice. And then she was saying parents were not, during COVID, we're not getting any choice regarding what my kids were learning. Now, look, I grew up learning the history where slavery is bad and Rosa Parks and all the stories that apparently they have a problem with. I wasn't taught about Black Wall Street, which why wasn't I, right?
Yep.
Another horrific moment in our history. But what I don't have necessarily is this desire to erase that sort of education.
You know what I
Why?
wasn't taught about was the fact that Texas held on to slavery. What was it, 2 years? I didn't know what Juneteenth was. No one ever talked to me
No
about
one
that.
ever
I
taught
didn't.
it. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I didn't know that happened until like a couple of years ago.
Yeah. It's there's more coming out, and we should be ashamed of parts of our history. We should understand. We should, and I use the word ashamed so we don't repeat it. Not that we have to hang our head all the time, but understand what we did that got us to this point today. I mean, there's all sorts of things that have nothing to do with race that America has benefited from that we want to flip the script on. The Industrial Revolution, the machines that we created that spewed toxins into the air, but that made us a world power. We want to look at poorer countries and shame them for using now. Why? Because it's terrible for the environment, but they're just trying to be like we were all the way back then. I mean, history is complicated, and the consequences of what we've done back then still linger today. And I don't agree with people that say there's no racism now. Yeah, back then there was. CRT isn't needed because God, get over it already. No, the fact that you are offended by learning the true history and racist history of this country shows me that we have not yet learned it. Shows me that there are still tentacles of it grasping many aspects of our lives, from criminal justice to housing to business to so many things. And if you're afraid of learning it, if you want to change it, ask yourself why. Lori says, I'd love to see critical race theory as DeSantis defines it snuck in under the guise of using PragerU material. Yeah, I don't know. I also don't think an unaccredited program should be within schools. How about that? I mean, there should be some sort of filtering system for the BS, right? It blows my mind. Champagne Wishes says, I'm not ashamed of our history. I accept that it happened and moved on. But, if you're creating a curriculum or you're following a curriculum, people would disagree. They're like, well, we need to move on and stop, teaching it the same way. No, don't. If there was anything, though, Kim, that I do kind of agree with, and I think that this also has to do with the book banning aspect of this conversation, is there are so many more current books that I think should be taught in the classroom. Yeah. Although I loved, let's just say, Catcher in the Rye when I read it in high school, I do think that there's other books that can deal with the same sort of topics that aren't Catcher in the Rye. And so I don't fully believe that if you don't have kids read Catcher in the Rye as part of your curriculum, you're omitting things that kids need to learn. I think that our schools should update the list of books, but when you open up that door, a bunch of nonsense is going to go through, and they're going to have all sorts of debates of what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed. But I mean, think about how many books have been written right? Since Tom Sawyer, somebody was mentioning in the comments, since Catcher in the Rye, that deal with more current issues that kids could be reading and might maybe even more engaged in. And I do think that as far as education needs to be revised and relooked at. Not everything, not history,
My
but that.
mom was a public school teacher for nearly 40 years in Nevada.
Right.
And because of that, her garage looks like a classroom storage unit.
That's
right?
awesome.
And so my kids have never had a shortage of books. Books for every age range, books for every reading level. Boxes of books arrive. Oh, this is the age that Jacob's at the age where he should be reading these books. And books have never been a problem. But going through the books, because she's been teaching for 40 years, I find a lot of old ones.
Yeah.
And they're books on history and books on Native Americans and stories and things that are quite obviously propaganda for the way that we wanted, our kids in America, regardless of race, to see world issues. They are absolutely infuriatingly wrong.
Mhm.
And so there are some books that I weeded out and I gave back to her and I said, check out, did you actually use this in the classroom? Look at this book.
Right.
Like, look at.
And what was her response when you showed it
She's
to
like,
her?
there was, I don't remember this one, or, oh. I think she had like books in the classroom, but she didn't necessarily like teach from those books, right? They were just, you could go read those books if you wanted to read those books.
Which is fine. Yeah, it's a library
No,
kind of, right?
I mean, in my house, I can ban the books I want to ban.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I have freedom to say, yes, you will not learn lies. So if this book seems to think what we did to the Native American population was all right, thumbs up. No, that book is a goner, right?
Yeah.
I want you to learn the truth about what happened. We're not sugarcoating it up in here.
Well, that's exactly what Prager University is probably going to do. I mean, that whole Christopher Columbus thing, insane. I mean, they weren't killed. It's just, but also the fact that they even wrote that, created a cartoon and had that cartoon with the blonde hair, blue eyes, which is hilarious, is just, it's insane to me. And we have to keep an eye on our schools. And
does that make you feel better if you believe that? Like, does that make you feel okay? Well, you would rather be enslaved than dead? No. I mean,
and what is that going to do
make
to
it
the
more palatable
conversation?
to you?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, just go down the road with that conversation. No. Okay. So now you're looking at, let's just say someone whose ancestry goes back to the slavery days, right? And let's just say it's a white person and a black person debating this. And the black person saying, you stole my ancestors from their home. You enslaved them on these ships, which was just a horrific situation. And those that actually lived and got to, let's say, America, were treated this way, sold like chattel, whipped, raped, had babies stripped from them, had to plow the farms, were responsible for the wealth in this nation, and yet did not get to share in a dime of it. And then the person looks at you back and says, well, you were alive, right? Is that building a bridge of understanding here? Because I don't think so. I don't think that that's building any sort of bridge of understanding. I think that's dividing us even more. It's giving certain people an excuse to get out of an uncomfortable conversation. Have the uncomfortable conversation. Say, that has sucked. That was awful. I can't believe that. I would never do that to you. I am so glad that we have evolved as a society where we all know what is wrong when we see and hear it. And it's like Florida wants to put the earplugs back in our ears, the blinders over our eyes, and say, it's okay. Don't feel bad. It's okay, sweetie. Talk about coddling and a trophy generation. Jesus, Lord Almighty. Like, just face history as it was and be honest about it. Jim writes, increase the number of quote unquote hard to talk about questions in the SAT and see a generation of Florida students fail out. Maybe. They'll probably skew that test as well. There'll be a Florida edition, It'll just be absolutely ridiculous. But again, Florida, everyone's moving to Florida, right? Everyone wants to move to Florida. Well, let's see what happens to the politics as that continues to happen. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit in the last few moments that we have on this show and talk about something that, kind of COVID related. Education was being re-examined during COVID, people pulling their kids out of public school, because they wanted their kids to go to school. And why? What was one of the main reasons, Kim, that parents really needed their kids to go back to in-person school? It's because they needed to work, right?
Right.
They cannot have these kids running around while they're trying to work. And one of the companies that kind of boomed during COVID was Zoom. But Zoom has announced the end of remote working. I have never seen a headline that is so contradictory.
Yeah.
Zoom, why? Why would
Don't
you
you
do
feel
that?
like they're shooting themselves in the foot? They should be the people who are like, work from home. The work from home generation isn't gone. We're still doing it. Look at the hybrid workforce. Look at all this. We're
Yeah.
still relevant. We're still amazing. Zoom it all. No, you don't have Zoom. The people, responsible for allowing most of us to work from home become the people who are like, come back to the office. No.
Yeah. Well, it was funny. There was a picture. It's like a meme on social media, and it says, it's a picture of Zoom's like headquarters, and they're like, why does Zoom have office buildings? Because you would think they would go all in. If there was a company that you would think would go all in on 100% remote working, it's Zoom.
Yeah.
Because what are you saying? That Zoom doesn't work in certain instances?
It's like not buying the product that you sell, right? Or not
Exactly.
getting behind the thing that you're doing. Like if a Nike executive walked out in a pair of Adidas.
Right.
No.
No. What are
Yeah.
you doing, Zoom? So apparently now they want people to go hybrid. They're saying they want people back in the office at least 2 days a week. A spokesperson said, quote, we believe that a structured hybrid approach, meaning employees that live near an office need to be on site 2 days a week to interact with their teams, is most effective for Zoom. As a company, we're in a better position to use our own technologies, continue to innovate, and support our global customers. I know people that don't work for Zoom that have been 100% remote. Like their headquarters and offices are gone. And why can't Zoom do it? It just, I feel like there is such this uncomfortable perspective of what it means for people to work where they want to and when they want to, even though the technology is there. Technology was supposed to make our lives easier. Back in the day, we were talking about the Industrial Revolution and robots and machines. It was supposed to be so we would have more time to ourselves. But instead, it seems like we created all these things so that we could just work more. Okay, well, since that's taking that job, you can use all those extra minutes to do more work. But no, if you can make people's lives easier, happier, and they can still get the job done, then why wouldn't you do that? Now, as you can imagine, workers at Zoom are not pleased. Apparently, a lot of people are griping, expressing their frustrations. I love when they have these all hands on meetings. What do you think is going to be said? They said that they told workers who did not like the policy change that they could exit the company. Another Zoom employee alleged on the forum that the CEO said that he had been inspired to make the transition by an intern working late in the office. I really did hope that obviously one of the good things that would come out of COVID is that we would fundamentally change something like this, that we would make the work-life balance even better. For some people, they are. Anybody in the comments still 100% remote work besides Kim McAllister? I think that it's great. I think if you can work from home, why not?
My husband has been a remote worker for more than 10 years.
That's awesome.
So his company, everybody's remote. They did have a headquarters in Fremont where a very few people work that happen to live in that area. But everyone else is either, if you're on staff and you live somewhere in the Bay Area, you work remotely. And they have a lot of contractors that work in different countries and different time zones that work remotely as well. I think there are a lot of tech companies that maybe aren't the huge, big Googles or Metas or whatever that do remote work because, maybe they're based somewhere else, but they need the talent that's here in the Bay Area that they're looking for certain, people that can write and code in certain languages. So remote work is okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to get somebody on. I've been interacting with two. They're called digital nomads. I'm trying to get at least one or two of them on the show to talk about that lifestyle. And basically, it means you work wherever, you travel around, you travel to different countries, and you're able to work. And that's what technology should bring us, the ability to do that. Karen writes in, remote working is a big plus for workers, even more than a raise. People will leave their work from office only for remote work or even hybrid work. Kim says, my friend's husband worked for Zoom the first 2 years of the pandemic. He quit because the expectation was like a lot of tech companies. They expect 24/7 work.
That's the thing with working remotely. I mean, on one hand, it's amazing because your schedule's a little more flexible and you don't have to go anywhere and have the nightmare of a commute. But on the other hand, work is always here.
Yeah.
There's always, so it's not like you leave the office and you leave it all behind. And so I think companies that allow remote work, they actually get more work out of you. You're able to work longer hours. I know when KGO let us work from home, I would go in the evening and write news for the next shift that wasn't my shift because it was right here. And I could do that because everything was right at my fingertips and it was easier for me. It was easy for me to set that up for the day ahead.
Right.
And so they got more work out of me by having a remote system than if it was only offered at work. So I do think they're getting more work out of people. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Anonymous makes an interesting point, though. Sounds like Zoom realized that productivity sharply declines. They have all the data of thousands of companies attempting remote work. I mean, it matters what you consider productivity, because what are you really comparing? I think it can be very subjective, right? It can be very subjective of what constitutes a full day's work. If somebody goes into the office, and we've seen study after study that shows this, of the amount of wasted time, because you're there for 8 hours, you're having coffee, you're chit-chatting with a friend, you're on your phone, you're on social media, and the amount of actual work is condensed versus somebody working from home, again, anecdotally, getting that stuff done because you, one, want to keep the setup that you have going. And two, when you're home and you're working, you're home and you're working. I got to get this done. I have a project. And I've always maintained that a good remote worker has a good manager setting goals, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly goals. And if I meet those and hopefully exceed those goals, then I'm a good worker. Who the hell cares if I'm sitting in the office or at home? That, and again, I always also add, not every job can be remote. I mean, you can't have a remote doctor. Can't have a remote dentist. There are definitely, obviously, fields that you can't do that. But
my husband has said in the past that not everyone is a good remote worker.
Yeah.
There's a science to it. You have to be one of these people that has a work ethic that can, they call it the self, job lingo, be a self-starter, right?
Yeah.
And also you have to make time to have human contact with other grownups.
Yes.
So that's why sometimes, as when I was in the city working, he would go to a coffee shop and, developed a group of people that were all remote workers. They knew each other. They would chat not about work, but about other things, because you need those moments where you're talking to people. Otherwise, it can be very isolating. You have to realize how to, keep chat windows open, how to check in with people that you wouldn't normally, just ping and check in with on the internet, but that you might see at work in the hallway. So there's a science to it and a way to do it that works, but not everyone has that.
And that makes sense. Like you have to make it, you have to actually take the extra effort to be like, I'm here, I'm working, I'm doing this, just checking in as if you were walking past the office.
Right.
Now, PragerU makes a good point. It depends on the job. Yes. Do people want state employees working from home like the DMV? I remember during COVID, something happened with my taxes. I remember I was talking about it on my show. I needed to get a hold of, I know what it was. I had accidentally, because I'm a moron, I had accidentally sent my federal tax payment to the state and vice versa. Oh, big problem.
I bet that happens all the time. I bet they just know to forward it, right?
No, I got a letter saying I hadn't paid my state taxes because I had accidentally, and so I had to get a hold of somebody because it was, you were going to start getting dinged, right? I think it took me 3 days to get a hold of someone from the IRS on the phone. I tried every trick in the book, like hang up, hit this number, like all those sorts of things. Finally got a hold of this woman, and she was at home. You hear her dog barking in the background, and I did not get 2 licks. And I didn't care. I was like, oh, thank God I got a hold of you. And I was like, please do not hang up. She's like, I won't hang up. We'll get this figured out. I totally get it. And she was awesome. I'll never forget her. But it can be a big old pain in the butt if But again, call centers, remote work for call centers is very normal. So if you're talking about state employees, which oftentimes you have to call, you don't go in and see to get a lot of the stuff done. I could see that being remote work. What's the freaking difference? I never see the person. I would want them actually in this country. You know, if I'm calling the DMV, I don't want it to go to a different country where, you know, they don't know our rules, regulations necessarily. I want to know that I don't care if it's in Texas, and you could always tell. They always ask you, what's the weather like out there? You know? But that's about it. I
If
feel
you
like
told
it
me,
should be that.
I mean, obviously there's front-facing jobs at the DMV where someone has to be at the
Right.
counter. But if you told me that the person whose job it is to sit at a desk and process,
Whatever.
I don't know, whatever, registration things that have been sent in, mailed
Right.
in, right?
Voter registration, let's say.
Whatever job it is that you don't need to see their face at the counter, but they're processing paperwork.
Right.
And if you told me that they were more productive and faster at home and often maybe even use the time that they would have commuted to take breaks or do other things, and so they move faster and things happen quicker, then I would say I would rather have that person at home. If they're turning in more work and they're doing a better job from home, so be it.
Yeah.
You know?
And the thing that also pisses me off is they look at these remote workers and like, oh, productivity is down, you know, the morale is boosted when we're in person. Those sorts of bottom line things that they use it as an excuse that people have to come back in. It never seems to trickle down to the person getting the golden parachute, right? That gets millions and millions of dollars when the company's stock falls. It's this hierarchy of excuses on why some people can get just a basic work-life balance with remote work, but somebody else who, and I don't know what it's like to be a CEO, but I do think they're completely overpaid compared to the lower rung people. It's this disconnect. All they're asking for is to not spend so much time away from home if it doesn't need to happen. And you're like, nope, morale, productivity. Sorry, you're a crappy manager and can't set goals that I need to meet to be productive. Stupid. Eric says a study just came out saying that completely remote working are almost 20% less productive. Well, just like my same argument, you're 20% less productive because I would say the person that's managing you isn't setting the goals properly. What do you need from someone? And if I'm not hitting it, fire my ass, right? Demote me. If I'm not doing my job, but what is my job? What do you consider productivity? Now, and it has to be completely, the line has to be drawn completely to me. You can't be like Netflix, oh, streaming numbers are down, and so that one remote worker is the reason for it. There could be a myriad of reasons why productivity is down. It has nothing to do with the amount of remote workers there are. But it could be also used as an excuse. Debbie says, here's the thing with working remotely. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. Management needs to be able to manage and make sure the jobs get done. I think a hybrid approach probably makes the most sense. I will agree with you. I'll give in there. I think if we're going to talk about compromise and people not always getting everything they want, hybrid does work. 2 days a week, going into the office, kind of smoozing a little bit with the boss and checking things. Okay. Maybe 1-2 days. You know, I understand commutes. Believe me, when I go up to San Francisco, when I work up there, every time I'm driving on that freeway, I remember how much I hate that commute, especially when it's like 3:00 in the freaking morning. Yeah. But you know, I do it. I need to do it. So I don't have a problem with it. But if you had to go from 100% remote work to 80% remote work, I feel like that's a compromise. So maybe these Zoomers don't really have a point. They should just kind of give in a little bit. Or again, you could always find a different job. Okay. We will be back tomorrow. We didn't get to a ton of stuff. I wanted to talk, and maybe we'll get to it tomorrow, about this Palo Alto restaurant owner that's being evicted because they were 1 day late with the rent. They started eviction proceedings after 1 day. Sent a note. Rent was due on the 12th, and you sent it on the 13th. I've started eviction proceedings.
Had they do this repeatedly? Like, are they habitually late?
I don't think so. But we'll get
into
that tomorrow.
They were just looking for a reason to get rid of them.
Exactly.
You know?
And then I believe Pittsburgh today, at today's city council meeting, they're going to be debating stricter rent control laws. People are saying there needs to be a cap on this stuff. Also, should you use, this will be a fun one, LinkedIn like it's Tinder or a dating site? One woman says, you know what? It's the best place to go to find people that
Really?
maybe their professions align, their income aligns with what you're looking for. So we'll talk about that.
See, that's just, you're not looking for a personality. You're not looking for a partner. You're looking for a resume.
Well, if you want somebody that's successful, that is college educated, and maybe isn't so Tinder-esque, you want someone that's serious, is using LinkedIn bad. I know, some people use the obituaries to look for a house. So is this any different? You got to go where the things are that you want.
It seems a little distasteful.
A little. Kim McAllister is just
like, I'll only date people that make a certain income or that have a certain status in life.
Yeah.
Does your resume say you're a doctor, a lawyer, a CEO? Well, then, okay, you're acceptable. I don't know.
We'll get into that tomorrow. Thanks to everybody that joined the show today. Make sure you click that thumbs up button to show your support. Harry, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. You are amazing. If you are watching this in replay, you can still donate to our super chat. Just look for the $ under the live chat box. And please go to The Nikki Medoro Show. The Nikki Medoro Show right now and sign up to be a monthly Patreon subscriber. We depend on our Patreon memberships to keep this show going. And if you'd like to be here in the morning, please consider doing that. TheNikkiMedoroShow.com. Our podcast links are there as well. Make sure you go to the Mark Thompson Show right after this show and stay on until 2. 1 to 2 is the after party with Kim McAllister and John Daly. And thank you, all of you, for being here each and every day. I love you. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You're sprout like a beautiful blossom. You're all so the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.